Go on.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Oh, hey, we are live. Oh, boy, that snuck up on me there. Okay, we are live. Welcome to the Opperman Report. I am your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. And this is our special birthday show brought to you by Subash Technosis. That's right, SubashTechnosis.com. You spell that S-U-B-A-S-H, Tech, T-E-C-H, T-E-C-H, Gnosis, N-O-S-I-S.com, SubashTechnosis.com. You can find them on Facebook. Just look up Subash Technosis. I think if you just look up Subash, S-U-B-A-S-H, you'll find it there, Subash Technosis. And these are the guys, I've known Subash for 10 years. And the website design for you, search engine optimization. If you want your website to be ranking high in Google, on the front page of Google, in the top 5 searches, you go to Subash. You need a press release. You need data entry. You need content writing. Subash Technosis is the man to get a hold of. Okay, the show's, check out OppermanReport.com. We had a little show tonight with Vincent Palomera, and the second half of that show you can find in the member section. That's the quality of the show that we have in our member section here at OppermanReport.com. Now, tonight's title of our show, the birthday show, is called Born Again Birthdays, Scientology, Freemasons, and the French Foreign Legion. Only on the Opperman Report can you find a show title like that. Oh, boy, what a day, what a day. Here we go. I want to give a shout-out to all the Vegas protesters and activists out on the Las Vegas Strip right now in front of the Bellagio. We have a victory, a partial victory, with the Standing Rock Sioux in North Dakota. Although we lost the court hearing today, we won because the Army Corps of Engineers issued a statement saying that we will not proceed building on this land until further investigation, research, and inquiry. So it might be a trick just to get people, to go home, because, man, it was really, they got thousands over there right now standing in solidarity. And, you don't hear about this on the news. You heard this here on the Opperman Report first, But today down on the Strip, we had the Bernie Sanders Brigade came down from California, and they stopped at the Strip. We had, oh, my God, local Native American groups all got together. This is one of our biggest and most successful rallies. Of course, I missed the whole thing. We had a good one when I wasn't there. Because, I guess when I'm going, people don't want to show up. But if they know I'm not going to be there, more people come. I guess that's how things work. Okay, let's see. Let's look at the old notes. Let's see the old birthday notes. I'm 21 years old today. So I guess I can go out and have a drink after the show. And tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, tomorrow will be 9/10/2016. It will not be my birthday. My birthday will end tonight at midnight. But until then, you can still wish me happy birthday, because only about 1 million people did today. Thank you all for all the great birthday wishes, and the instant messages and the emails and all the Facebook posts. You know how I love to get your emails. You know how I love to get 150 instant messages per hour. Right? One character out there, Dylan Wade, I got to tell you, he says happy birthday on Skype because he's part of the Skype chat room for Awake Radio. I got to chat with him. Hey, Dylan, when are you going to get your show ready? Hey, happy birthday. Okay, 10 minutes later, he's messaging me on Facebook. Hey, happy birthday. Again? It's not a year later, man. Maybe he's a time traveler now. And he thought it was next year. Tomorrow, 5 p.m., we have John Clark. Now, he is the lawyer. He was the attorney for Mr. Knowlton, who was on our show previously, who was the witness in the Vince Foster murder case. Okay, and he did that extra exhibit that they added to the congressional hearing. John Clark. Now, John Clark is a civil rights attorney, and he's going to be on the show tomorrow. And he also filed a lawsuit and won successfully in the flight TWA 800 flight. And, I talk about that quite a bit because if you go to YouTube and you put in Discovery Channel, NYPD, Scuba, Harbor Aviation, you'll come up with there was a Discovery Channel. You might even could leave out Discovery Channel. Might not have been Discovery Channel. I'm pretty sure it was. But they did a documentary of these guys who work for NYPD, Harbor Aviation, the scuba cops in New York. And everybody on that documentary was at my wedding. I know all those guys, and they all came to my wedding. And the best man at my wedding was on that video too. And I went to his. I know they all went to his wedding, so I know all these guys. And what was told to me, because these are the guys who lifted up the debris. They went diving down and lifted up all that debris from TWA 800. And they told me, because some of these guys are former Navy SEALs or former military. And I says, oh, no. This was a missile. This was a missile that hit that plane. We saw the damage. We saw the way it went down. And we know that it was a missile. So that's that. That's going to be on tomorrow night, 5 o'clock. In the member section, I added 3 new shows. One is with Fred Rosen, great guy. He wrote the book about Lobster Boy. But this was a book about the murder of one of these presidents. I forget his name right now. I forget his name. It's been a week. It's been a rough week, guys. It's been a very busy, rough week. A lot of distractions going on around here. Then another show with this woman named Julianne about psychopaths and the Netflix movie Scandals, I think it's called. You got to go look it up. Go to the members section, check it out, and find out. There's a lot of new shows. We just put up 3 brand new shows on there. And I got a bunch of shows planned for this week, too. Busy. Now, we had this week Hillary and Trump did this town hall where separately they, Matt Lauer asked questions and questions from the audience and all kinds of nonsense, right? Now, what you haven't seen reported on the news about that, is that town hall was held on the Intrepid, which I believe is an aircraft carrier. It's in New York, and it's called the Intrepid Museum. And if you're in New York, you can go down to the Intrepid Museum and visit all this stuff, right? And they also have over there one of the, what's that thing called? One of those space shuttles over there. Now, what you don't know is that Donald Trump had a huge home field advantage holding this town hall at the Intrepid. Okay? Because the Intrepid Museum is owned by the Fisher Foundation. Okay? And who is Mr. Fisher? He's a real estate mogul in New York. Right? And who was Mr. Fisher's, how do I say this? Okay, Donald Trump has a chief of security named Keith Schiller. And when Keith Schiller was still a cop in New York City, he worked for the Fisher family. I don't know if he worked for them off the books or how this worked. But he worked for them where he would get them cops. Because the Fisher Foundation and Mr. Fisher is the only name I knew for the guy. I don't know what his first name is. Although I've seen him on TV a couple of times. He keeps a low profile. Very powerful guy in New York. A lot of money. Way more money than Trump. The guy owns a Intrepid Museum. He owns an aircraft carrier and a shuttle. Way more money than Trump and Trump's foundation. This guy's loaded. And he had this thing where he liked to hire cops to show up at people's funerals. So if he had a friend that was having a funeral or something like that, he would hire 100 cops to show up at the funeral in uniform and direct traffic, and stand around, give people dirty looks, and play with bagpipes and do all that kind of stuff. It's kind of like a fetish almost with this guy. And he would do that hiring through Trump's chief of security, Keith Schiller. So when Trump showed up down there at the Intrepid, he got his boy Keith there, who knows all the ins and outs of this place. And because they're all buddies, And all my guys, my Harbor Aviation guys, they're the guys who got the gig to when they brought the space shuttle and they brought up the Hudson River, on a barge, and it was my guys, the Harbor Aviation guys, who had that job to off duty, to get this space shuttle over to the Intrepid Museum. So these are all the same guys, doing this thing. So Trump definitely had the home field advantage for that. And you don't see that on TV. They're not talking about that. By the way, too, as long as we're talking about Harbor Aviation, all this kind of stuff, the movie came out, Sully, right, about this guy, this pilot who landed his plane in the Hudson over there. They talk about this constantly in almost every single interview, that Sully says that he was the last man on that plane, and he walked up and down the aisle to make sure that no one was on that plane. That's not true. That's not true at all, because I know the guys who were the last guys on that plane, and it wasn't Sully. Sully did walk up and down the plane, and then he got off the plane. My guys were still on that plane when Sully got off the plane. There's no doubt about that. I don't think there's even any argument about that. And a bunch of NYPD cops were on and off that plane way after Sully was back on shore. And some cops did get very injured in that, too, in that rescue there. Okay, so that's a little background, right? Killed 12 minutes. Let's see what's on my notes here. Okay. Little update about last week's show, which was, wah, I want you to respect me. I demand you respect me. Right? Which turned out to be a dramatically popular show. People love to hear all the backroom gossip and the politics and the drama that goes on behind the scenes. So that turned out, that show on Spreaker got like 8 likes. And the views on like TuneIn and iHeart were just freaking out the window on that show. I guess everybody just loves the drama, Hey. Oh, we also broke 10,000 followers on Spreaker this week. And as a matter of fact, it went up so fast, it went from shot past 10,000 to like 10,150. So keep up the great work, guys. Thank you very much. It's a big help if you go to YouTube and you subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you go to Spreaker and you find Opperman Report and you follow, if you follow us on Spreaker, you get an email when the show starts. You'll never miss a show. Although, I know a lot of people try to avoid the show. And it's up there in archives. You can listen to it in the future. But if on YouTube, if you subscribe on YouTube, we're trying to reach a certain plateau. The next plateau would be 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. And that gets you more features and benefits from the YouTube people. And also, too, if you view on YouTube, we make a little money from that, too. We got a couple of pennies, a couple of shekels come our way. If you watch on YouTube and you don't do skip ad, you don't want to click skip ad. That screws us out of the money. Then YouTube gets all that money from the advertising. We get nothing. But one thing about last week, with the behind-the-scenes drama that I revealed to you, is it's just amazing. Because now what's going on. By the way, that pretty much put an end to all the nonsense that was going on, all the accusations and the spamming and the trolling and all that kind of crap. But there was one little last-ditch effort, and it's just so ridiculous. I just like to put this one to rest, too. It's about Thomas Sheridan. Thomas Sheridan, I interviewed him. He's a guy from Ireland, but he lived in New York City for a while. He's an interesting guy. He was on my show, and we did a show about Jimmy Savile. It was a very popular show, and huge traffic on that show. And he was a very popular guest. So after he did my show, I liked him. He was very popular. And he said he wanted to do his own show. So I said, okay, fine. I'll put you in touch with all the people, all the stations that I'm on. I'll put you in touch with everyone. One of those was Awake Radio. And he started doing his podcast. And my producer really helped him out to hook up with all the people, the managers and stuff like that, to get him on these. And everybody loved him, you know. He got on. But whatever happened, I don't know. I wasn't intimately involved in the daily goings-on. And he stopped doing his show. And he left some stations, and he went to do his own reality, I think it was called RealityBitesRadio.com, something like that. Where he had his own, he wanted to do it on his own. I don't know what he wanted to do it on his own. I don't know what the reason why. He never told me why he left anywhere, why he didn't go, why he didn't stay, or what he was doing. You know, he doesn't consult with me. I don't know him that well. We've talked off the air maybe 3 times our whole life. But whatever the reason is, he left Awake. I had nothing to do with it. And he had, as far as I know, he hasn't been on Awake in like 2 years. As far as I know, I don't know. But the latest last-ditch effort was, oh, rest in peace, Thomas Sheridan. Ed Opperman is destroyed. I'm going after him, too. This is all just a bunch of wacky, made-up stuff, man, by people with nothing to do in their lives. Nothing to do in their boring lives. Except message me, happy birthday. Over and over and over and over again. And make up stuff. But I think that was the last-ditch effort, and this idea that, hey, if we just keep up the pressure on Ed, he's going to give in, and he's going to chuck it all in, and then we'll come swooping in, and all the other hosts will fall into line, and it'll be back to the way it was, with us in charge. Okay? And I think that kind of theory has kind of fallen apart, you might say. So, like I was saying, today is my birthday. Believe it or not, I'm 54 years old. And I'm starting to feel it, to be honest with you. You know, physically, in the past year, things haven't been going that good. Normally a pretty fit guy, you know, working out, swimming and hiking and biking, all that kind of stuff. But I kind of got a hernia this year, so I haven't been working out. I feel good with this diet, but I'm feeling my age. I'll tell you that. 54 long years. Broke up with my girlfriend this week. That's another story. I guess I do talk about it a lot. But it's not just my birthday, but it's also my born again day. It was on September 9th, on my birthday. I think it was 1989. Where I got saved, okay? And where I went to an altar call in Las Vegas, and I gave my heart to the Lord. Okay, it was on my birthday, September 9th. I guess about, 27 years ago? And set me off on a whole new course in my life. Turned me around, I'd say, 180 degrees. The way it all went was, I guess it was around June or July. I was in Tucson, Arizona, and I was with this. I was staying at this hotel. I had a meeting at this hotel, at the Canyon Ranch Hotel in Tucson, and the meeting was over, and I had to go back to my hotel where I was staying. And so I went to the bellman. I said, "Hey, can you call me a cab?" And he goes, "It's going to take 2 hours for that cab to get here. I'll drive you over there." I said, "You sure?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, how much are you going to charge me?" That's so cheap, even that. And he goes, "Oh, whatever you want to give me." I said, "All right." So we're driving down and we're talking. It was dark out. And we're driving down these winding roads and these canyons in Tucson, Arizona, out in the desert. All the stars are out. And we're talking about this and we're talking about that. I'm talking about strip clubs and I'm talking about bars and all my craziness I was involved in at the time. And he's driving along, and he says to me, he goes, "You know, I was told, you know what? I was staying at Canyon Ranch. That's where I was staying. And I was getting my horoscope done, and I was doing past life regression and hypnosis and all this kind of crazy stuff. And I was talking about all that to him. And he goes, you know, all that stuff you're doing, that's all an illusion from the devil. And you're never going to be truly happy and truly satisfied until you surrender your life to Jesus Christ." And he said that to me. And I said to him, I said, "What are you, one of those religious fanatics?" And he goes, yep. He goes, I'm the worst one. And I knew what he said was true. I knew so deep down in my heart. I says, he's right, you know? And I says, you're right. I know I do. Because I had watched Pat Robertson, you know, those TV evangelists. I prayed a couple of times on TV. I went to Catholic church when I was a kid, you know? But something was going on in that car that night. And we pulled the car over together and we prayed. And I prayed what's called the sinner's prayer. And gave my heart to the Lord. But as I was praying, I says, you know, God, I know this is real. I know this is true. But I don't want to give up all my money. And I don't want to give up my lifestyle. I want to follow you, but I don't want to give up everything I'm doing. You know? But still, I felt that I made a sincere prayer. In the way I was capable of doing at the time. And, you know, he gave me we switched phone numbers, I guess it was. And he came by my hotel room the next day and he brought me a Bible with a bunch of scriptures underlined, a bunch of lists of things I should look up and stuff. I said, okay, thanks. And he wanted to take me to church. I said, okay, thanks, but no thanks. You know? I guess, you know, next day I sobered up, whatever it was, you know? And I just didn't want to do it, you know? And it talks about that in the Bible, the parable of the sower, about how, you know, some seeds fall on shallow soil, you know, and they grow up a little bit, but then it gets, you know, the rains come and washes it away. The worries of the world come and distract you from your growth, you know. And it also talks about how when you repent of your sins, you're forgiven of your sins, now you're all nice and clean, and the devil can come in there now because it's a great place to be because it's all clean inside, you know, and things can get 10 times worse. I should have looked up these scriptures for you. I've told this story a million times. And it did. Things for me got crazy after that. Okay, I've told you some of the stories. You know, I ran with the bulls in Spain. And I told you about how I pulled a gun on those cops in my condo in New York. Which is a long, crazy story in itself. Let me check the time here, see how we're doing on time. I'm not going to have time for that. Okay. Well, that's a pretty intense story, too, man, where, you know, a very good chance I could have got killed, you know, because I was fighting with my girlfriend on the phone. I'll tell you the short version. I was fighting with my girlfriend, Maria. Okay, we had this really passionate, wild romance spanning across the country. We moved together back and forth from Staten Island to Vegas, you know, craziness. Broke up, got back together. Wild. And we were fighting on the phone one day. And I hear a buzzer at my doorbell. And I figured, because I was having trouble with the nightclub, with some of the partners in the club. And I thought, these are my enemies coming to get me. Let me go get my gun. Right? So I was wearing like these shorts, like swim trunks, you know, and I remember taking this gun. It was a Tetonix Tech 9, and I had it in my pocket with my hand on the gun, and I fling the door open, and I open up the door, and there's two freaking New York City cops standing there with my hand on a gun in my pocket. And I kind of motioned and pointed at the gun and slammed the door shut. I went, oops, pointed at the gun and slammed the door shut in their faces. So they start banging on the door with their nightsticks. I took the gun, I threw it in the closet, and I opened up the door all casual. I said, "Whoa, what can I do for you?" And they patted down my pockets with their nightsticks because they had seen the gun in my pocket, obviously. And they says, "Who are you fighting with in there? What are you killing somebody in there?" And I says, "No, I'm here all alone. I was fighting with my girlfriend on the phone. There's nothing going on." And they says, "You're in there all by yourself?" I go, "Yeah, everything's cool." And they turned around and walked away. Okay? Now, today, probably on so many levels, I would have been shot dead or thrown in Rikers Island or whatever, you know. Who knows? Because it's a whole new world now today. But at the time, I was just kind of a guy that was wired a little bit too tight. And these cops didn't want to deal with this crazed maniac with his gun in his pocket. And they just let me be and went on their own way that night to go give out tickets or something and wipe the sweat off their foreheads. So things got crazy after that. And I talk in my book about an unfortunate brush with the law. And I guess that happened around September 7th in Tucson, Arizona, where I got busted with some marijuana. A very small truckload of marijuana. Okay. And oh boy, they swept me up there, and they threw me in this jail. I was in there for like 3 days, and somehow I managed to get out on bail. It's a long story. That story takes 40 minutes, okay? And I managed to get out on bail. And the judge says, okay, you're going to go back to New York City. What's your address in New York City? I gave my address in New York City. Okay, because I knew it. I memorized it. I gave him the address. And he goes, okay, we got to go straight back. And I said, okay, great. But I didn't go straight back. Instead, because my girlfriend was living in Las Vegas, so I hopped on a plane. I flew to Vegas because I wanted to see my girlfriend. And it was a pretty intense time because everyone thought I was dead. I had not been heard of for 3 or 4 days. And so all my friends in New York thought I was dead. My girlfriend thought I was dead. Everybody pretty much thought I was done. They had gotten to me. So I remember getting off the plane, and in the cab on the way to the apartment in Vegas, my girlfriend's apartment, I stopped off and I got some champagne and some snacks and stuff. And we got to the house, and I told her, she says, what do you want me to cook for you? And she says, just make some home cooking. Make something home cooked. I don't want any pizza or anything like that. She says, well, I got some lentil soup. You can have that. So we got there, and we made the snacks. We drank the champagne. I told her everything I'd been through for the past 3 days, which is a pretty intense story. Okay, but like I said, it takes 40 minutes to tell, and I want to do it in the right form. I think I'm going to do it on a video. But there is a video. I got a video of me telling the story at a church. See, I said the sinner's prayer in that cab with that bellman in Tucson, and then the next day, I said, she said, we got to go to church. And I says, you're right, I don't know where to go. But her and her sister, her aunt had been praying for me all the time. And so they took me to that church, which was Trinity Life Center, which is where, my daughter got baptized years later. And I went there, and I went to the altar call. You have a service, and they said, well, anybody want to give their life to the Lord? And I went up to the altar call in front of everybody, And again, tears, crying. And they took me in the back. They gave me this little Bible. And the first time I read that Bible was, I read the whole New Testament on a plane flight. It was a red-eye flight going from Las Vegas to New York. So I said the sinner's prayer in a cab, and then a altar call in Las Vegas, read the Bible on a plane. And then when I got to Staten Island, when I moved back to Staten Island, I found this little church called Calvary Assembly of God. And I called up there to find out if they had any services that night. And this young guy, Tim McIntyre, picks up the phone. And I said, hey, what's your church like over there? He goes, well, I'll come pick you up. And he hopped in his car, and he came and got me and took me. He was in the band, like the worship, stuff like that. He was a youth pastor over there. And he picked me up, and he took me down there. And then that became my home church, because it was just, I could really feel the Holy Spirit there, and I really liked it. So me and Tim became really good friends, and that's why I received the baptism of the Holy Spirit through Tim and another friend of ours, Carlos. And Tim now today, he's the pastor of a church in Staten Island called Oasis Church in Midland Beach, right there at the epicenter where Hurricane Sandy hit. And him and his guys were at the forefront of helping people and rescuing people and pumping out basements during Hurricane Sandy. When Red Cross and stuff like that were driving around giving out bottles of water, Tim and his guys were pumping out people's basements with their own equipment, by the way, too. So a little shout out to my buddy Tim there. So this period of time in my life, from September 9th until about October 31st, has always been a really, things always happen, I had this situation where, where I got saved. And when I broke up with my wife and we got the divorce, and I went 30 days without seeing Victoria because my wife got a restraining order, that was right around this time, too. Too many things to even describe. Big life events have happened during this period of time. Some really good and some really bad. Okay? and some little combinations of both, too. So after I gave my heart to the Lord in that church there in Las Vegas, Trinity Life Center, on September 9th, 1989, I was facing a really rough period of time in my life. And like I said, we had this, I was facing 15 years in prison because of these little marijuana charge. Okay, the Scientology part's coming up. Okay, so we were living in this apartment complex. So, you know what? This is a good time for a break. Now that I'm being heckled from the chat room, okay, let me play this little commercial break here, and then we'll be right back after these wonderful messages. And now a word from our sponsors. Did you know that 30% of all people on online dating websites and personal ads are either married or in a monogamous relationship? 30%. If you suspect that your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend may be cheating online, go to emailrevealer.com, at our online infidelity investigation. You give us their email address, and we can trace it back to online personal ads, dating sites, and social networks. We can even expand the investigation and find them cheating on escort service sites, or even porn sites if they're registered to porn sites and swinger sites. So check out emailrevealer.com if you suspect your spouse is cheating, and check out our online infidelity investigation. William Ramsey is a producer here at the Opperman Report, and he's just come out with a new book, Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. Now, he just sent me a copy of this book. Oh, boy, it's about 2 inches thick. And there's a chapter on just about everybody in this book that you can imagine. The Beatles, and Jack Parsons. Everybody's in here. It's incredible. And I definitely recommend this book. There's a bunch of pictures in here, too, of all these people and different chapters and information. Anton LaVey and people I've never heard of, too. There's a whole bunch in here. JFC Fuller. I don't know who he is. But it's great stuff by our producer here, William Ramsey. So check out Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. You can find it on Amazon.com, or you could find it in the OppermanReport.com bookstore. We have an urgent bulletin. It seems that the group Strawman is still on the loose. It has been confirmed that Strawman are Canadian, okay, and that authorities are asking people to stay indoors, lock your doors and windows until this group can be dealt with. You could find more information about this group of Canadians, at strawmanmusic.com. You can have your ad played here. Okay, we're looking for sponsors. Okay, in fact, we desperately need sponsors right now to take this show to the next level. So you can have your ad played here, read live, like I'm doing now, so artfully. Or we can even work up a little jingle for you with some music and stuff like that and play it here. You have no idea how inexpensive it would be to have your ad played on the Opperman Report on 7 stations live Friday night, and another 7 stations live on Saturday night, plus replayed every day of the week on different stations, and then archived on YouTube, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and all different kinds of podcasts, Pod This and Podbean, all different kinds of places who archive the show for us. And on those archives, your ad would play indefinitely, forever. You also get a little banner on OppermanReport.com. You get a mention on the air. You get a little interview on the air, and all kinds of fun stuff if you sponsor Opperman Report. We have an opportunity to get this show on a major AM/FM station in California. We've been approved. So if you want to sponsor us into that, so incredibly inexpensive that your ad would be heard by the range covers 5 million people in population where your ad would be broadcast, and all these other stations would be thrown in for free. So really affordable prices to sponsor OppermanReport.com. Get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You can get a copy of that book at emailrevealer.com, or you can get a copy of that book now. It's back up on Amazon.com. How to Become a Successful Private Investigator by Ed Opperman. And this book has been updated a little bit from the previous book that we had that was available to our wonderful listeners. Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. Let's see how we're doing over here. Okay. All right, we're done. All right. So, as we left off in our story, here I am. I'm living in Vegas. I'm out on bail, living in Vegas with my girlfriend. She had these two kids, Michael and Stephanie. They were 3 and 5 years old. And even though I was, in some ways, still kind of a wild man, we weren't, this family, these kids were the center of our life. And we did all family stuff, We didn't do any crazy stuff. We were going to church twice a week at this Trinity Life Center. We had the kids over there in the Sunday school, and then the little youth group, And we were like Ozzie and Harriet, kind of like, And, now we had, the kids are outside playing all day long. You have to deal with the other parents and stuff and all these kinds of things that I had never dealt with before in my young age. I think I was like 29 years old. Never had to deal with that kind of stuff before. But, I threw myself into it, and that's what we were doing. But me and Maria would still have a very passionate love affair, and we would get into these arguments and fights. Plus, I was under a lot of stress. You got to remember, I had a fresh case I was facing 15 years. Okay. All right. And so the stress would get to us and the tension would get to us. And so we would have these little fights. And this time of year always reminds me of, I would leave the apartment and I would go and I would walk all the way through the apartment complex, across the street to one of these convenience stores. And either I would buy a couple of those tall cans of Coors, or I'd get a bottle of champagne and some cups. And they didn't sell Coors back in New York. On the East Coast, you couldn't get Coors back in those days. You could only get it on the West Coast. Now you get it everywhere. But back in those days, they only sold it on the West Coast. I think that's what that movie, Cannonball Run, was about, And as far as the champagne, back in New York, you had to go to a liquor store, which was only open a certain amount of hours. And here they sell champagne and wine and liquor in convenience stores. They're allowed to do that here. They're not allowed to do that in New York. So I would go down. I'd either get these couple of beers or I'd get this bottle of champagne, and I'd walk back and I'd sit by the pool out there in the dark all by myself, and just kind of decompress from all the stress of the day of raising these crazy kids and dealing with this crazy woman. Oh, I was so madly in love with this woman, too. So I remember one night in particular, I was just ready to leave, And I remember that night in particular, I bought some champagne and cups. And as I was leaving the convenience store, I saw a newspaper. It was a Las Vegas paper, either Review Journal or The Sun. And it talked about the French Foreign Legion. You could join, how people could join the French Foreign Legion. So I bought the newspaper, and I brought it back, and I'm sitting there reading it. And it talked about how they took people that were fugitives from justice, men that were heartbroken and lovelorn, and that's what they would do. They could go and join this French mercenary army, and there was no extradition. You couldn't get extradited back to the United States once you were a member of this army over here. So I says, whoa, this is the perfect solution for me. This is a plan. This is what I'm going to do. As I'm sitting there polishing off my third little red cup of styrofoam cup of champagne, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm looking this over, and I says, okay, I'm going to have to take a look at this and really consider this as an option for me. Okay? Because I got to tell you, this case was so serious that my lawyer was actually telling me to move to Italy. And other people were telling me. I also had a way out, too, to go to Guatemala because I knew some people that ran the government in Guatemala. So I had a way to get down there, too. Okay? But this was an option, French Foreign Legion. And I kind of liked it, you know, because I like doing cool stuff. You know me, right? Run with the bulls, French Foreign Legion. Okay. So I'm sitting there, and one of the neighbors comes over. This woman who was friends with Maria. I forget her name. But her and her husband, from the time we met them, they were Scientologists. And they were trying to get us to join Scientology. They would bug us about it and bring us pamphlets and try and explain to us, look, you can be a Christian and a Scientologist. This is right when I'm a brand new baby Christian. I just got saved, just started going to church. And now the Scientologists are trying to recruit me. And at the same time, her husband had just joined the Freemasons. And he was all excited, and he came over and told me, he goes, Ed, I just became a member of the Freemasons. They just initiated me, and they just took me in. This is so big for my career. This is so big for my future. This is so important. You have no idea. And I didn't really understand what he was talking about, or I didn't understand the evils of Scientology either. You know? I was oblivious to it. But he's telling me all this stuff. And then he starts saying that he wants me to become a Freemason. And I'm thinking, well, if it's such a big deal and you just got in, how am I supposed to get in? You know? But not only did he want me to become a Freemason with him, he brought these big shots from the Freemasons over to see me, to try and recruit me to become a Freemason. These guys, this was a time, the rent in this apartment was like $400 a month at the time. It was a nice place, and, you know, it was like 3 bedrooms, had a fireplace and a pool, community pool. But it wasn't a fancy place to be living. And here come down these guys in suits trying to recruit me to become a Freemason. You know, like practically like knocking on my door saying, no, we want you, you know. And just turned me off. I could feel something was wrong. And, you know, later on, too, the Freemasons tried to infiltrate me, too, again, during the Sarah Palin case. I talk about many times about the Israeli Mossad infiltrated and the Asian, Chinese intelligence infiltrated. But the Freemasons also tried to infiltrate me during that. They weren't as successful. But I'm sitting there, and she's talking to me, and we didn't tell these people, you know, that I had a case. But they had to have known. They had to have known. Because it's just too much coincidence, all this. That they target us and trying to get us to join Silence right after they get it. It's way too much. So we had told them that I had a business in New York and I went bankrupt. So I'm sitting there drinking. And she comes over and sits next to me and she says, you know, Ed, you're so impressive because any other man in a situation like this would be giving up. They'd be crying. You know, they'd be, you know, but you have so much confidence. You have so much, you don't give up. I'm so impressed with this, you know. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, I'm going to French Foreign Legion. I got my out right there. I'm folding up the newspaper so she can't see the headline because I don't want people to know I'm leaving the next day for the French Foreign Legion, you know. And I actually did. I called up the French embassy or consulate, I guess, in New York the next day. And I talked to a very nice woman over there. I told her I explained my whole situation, and she gave me an address to send a letter and an application. And I actually sent a letter and application to join the French Foreign Legion. I told them all about myself. And then they had a recruiter call me up, you know, over there in my little hideout in Las Vegas. Now, one of the things that this is such a memorable time in my life. And when I walk out the door, like if I were to walk out the door right now, the weather brings back all these memories of this time. And it was one of the most special times in my life. And part of it was, you know, my love for Maria. part of it was, my life was just in an uproar, being turned around. Everything I had was upside down. And, but the other thing was raising these kids, Michael and Stephanie. I love these kids, man. I love them till today. I still see these kids today, And they turn out to be great kids, great adults. One of the things was that they were such good kids at the time, too. They would share all their toys with the kids in the neighborhood all day long. They had a ton of toys. I had a lot of money. I bought toys. Because me, I'm like a big kid myself. I would buy toys every day. I couldn't walk into the store without coming out with a couple of toys for these kids. And Maria would say how I used to spoil them so bad. Oh, Ed, you spoil them so bad. I said, oh, what, they're kids, you spoil them. And they used to love to give away their toys to all the other kids. And then we'd have to go and get all their toys back from the other families and stuff. And then there was this whole thing, too, with Michael. He used to like to throw rocks at the other kids. So I kind of, had my way out. I could have got out of this. It was, a lot of responsibility dealing with these kids and Maria and, facing this court case. But I had my French Foreign Legion out. I could have done it. So, of course, a couple of days go by, and we get into another fight, and I go out to my convenience store. Well, by now, the guy knows me. And I get my couple of beers, and I'm walking back. I drink my beers by the pool, and I throw them away, and I start walking back to the house. And as I walk back to the house, I see all of Michael's and Stephanie's toys. They are strewn around the neighborhood. And there's the big wheel over there. There's one of the Barbies. There's one of the, the Etch-a-Sketch. All these toys, man. I'm picking them up. They were far away from the house, too. One by one, and I'm bringing them all back up to the house. And I remember thinking that night, this changed my life. And I says, you know something, man? If I'm not here to do this, who's going to do it? Who would be here tonight to come walk down here and pick up all this junk and bring it back to the house? No one. These people need me. I'm needed here. And it's important. And it's fulfilling and it's satisfying. I can remember what the weather was like that night when I walked down. And this is a story I tell Victoria all the time. So, here it is. 2016. Like 15 years later, 16 years later. And here it is, my birthday. And here I am talking to you on the radio. And I know a lot of people, I talked to a lot of people today. What are you doing today? I said, well, I got to do this show. I got to do that show. I got to produce another show. Bled, what do you do that for? And the thing is, I do it because if I didn't do it, who would? With this business about awake radio. Oh, it's a big headache. We'll wear them down. You're not going to wear me down. But the reason why you won't wear me down is because I do this stuff because no one else is doing it. We had a big rally today. We had a victory today, man. Big rally on the Strip. I couldn't be there, but I helped behind the scenes. And why do I do it? I do it because somebody's got to do it. And this is what I'll say to every single one of us, is that we all got to do this. Because it's the right thing to do. It's easy to take off and do the easy stuff and go with the French Foreign Legion. Another chapter in my book, fun night. Right? But it's the little stuff, man. It's picking up the toys for the little kids so that when they wake up tomorrow, you know, they thought it was all fun and to give away their toys. When they wake up tomorrow, they want their toys. You know what I'm saying? And they don't know any better. So what's the moral of the story? That's the moral of the story. Okay? We do this because, first of all, no one else is going to do it. It's the right thing to do. Okay? And it's satisfying. It feels good. It warms your heart. And you can look at yourself in the mirror the next day and you have self-respect. You respect yourself. Okay? That's what we do. And it is my birthday. And I do thank you all, honestly, for all the birthday wishes. And I know how much your friendship and your love means to me. And I hope you know how much I love you back. You know, there's a lot of people who contact me, and I get aggravated. And I'm a grumpy old guy. I'm 54 years old, okay? I'm not a young man anymore. So I'm a grumpy old guy, and I so please be patient with me, okay? And I know that I do nag about money and stuff like that, but I'm driven, okay? I'm driven here, guys, to really to get things done, and I think we are getting things done, okay? Things we can see with our own eyes, and things that we can't see with our own eyes. And I believe next year when I'm 54 again, I think I'm going to stop counting. You know, when girls hear 50, you know, I was 49 for a long, long time. And even 49 was tough. I just lie about my age and not tell you the truth. Yeah. But then again, I don't know. Listen, guys, I love you all. You have no idea. And one of the other things, too, is I want to say is that the reason why I do this is because I've kind of had these kind of life experiences that I can fall back on. That how many people who joined a vengeful relationship facing 15 years, ran with the bulls, all this kind of stuff. I've kind of had these life experiences that I can fall back on. That kind of I don't shake easy. I don't rattle easy. Even if you think, we'll just keep up the pressure. That's not going to work. All right, guys. Next coming up will be Pierce Redmond with a really good shoe. Tom Secker's on there with him. And we all love Tom Secker, too. And then there's a second portion to the Pierce Redmond show where I got to warn you, there's going to be a little bit of profanities in there. So it's going to be at 9 o'clock at night. All the little kids should be in bed. And all the little ladies who don't want their ears ruffled with bad words can tune out at that point. But I just want to make a point too, to like all this stuff about how I run a shock jock station, and there's all this profanity on the station now, and this is never what it was meant to be. Listen, I am just as much a Christian as any one of you. Okay, we're all sinners, we're all forgiven, but by the same blood of Jesus Christ. Okay, and I'm not to look at you and judge you, and you're not to look at me and judge me. That's none of your business. It's none of my business, okay? So don't tell me you're more, you have some greater faith than me, or you're holier than me, or whatever, because a curse word does not pass your lips, okay? We all sin, and we all fall short, okay? And we're all equal in this business. All right, guys. Coming up next, with a really big shoe, will be Pierce Redmond and Topo Gigio for the kids. And now a word from our sponsors. Did you know that 30% of all people on online dating websites and personal ads are either married or in a monogamous relationship? 30%. If you suspect that your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend may be cheating online, go to emailrevealer.com. Our online infidelity investigation. You give us their email address, and we could trace it back to online personal ads, dating sites, and social networks. We can even expand the investigation and find them cheating on escort service sites or even porn sites if they're registered to porn sites and swinger sites. So check out emailrevealer.com if you suspect your spouse is cheating, and check out our online infidelity investigation. William Ramsey is a producer here at the Opperman Report, and he's just come out with a new book, Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. Now, he just sent me a copy of this book. Oh boy, it's about 2 inches thick, and there's a chapter on just about everybody in this book that you can imagine. The Beatles, and Jack Parsons, everybody's in here. It's incredible. And I definitely recommend this book. There's a bunch of pictures in here, too, of all these people and different chapters and information. Anselm LaVey and people I've never heard of, too. There's a whole bunch in here. JFC Fuller. I don't know who he is. But it's great stuff by our producer here, William Ramsey. So check out Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. You can find it on Amazon.com, or you could find it in the Opperman Report.com bookstore. We have an urgent bulletin. It seems that the group Strawman is still on the loose. It has been confirmed that Strawman are Canadian, okay, and that authorities are asking people to stay indoors, lock your doors and windows until this group can be dealt with. You could find more information about this group of Canadians, at strawmanmusic.com. You can have your ad played here. Okay, we're looking for sponsors. Okay, in fact, we desperately need sponsors right now to take this show to the next level. So you can have your ad played here, read live, like I'm doing now, so artfully. Or we can even work up a little jingle for you with some music and stuff like that and play it here. You have no idea how inexpensive it would be to have your ad played on the Opperman Report on 7 stations. Live Friday night, and another 7 stations live on Saturday night, plus replayed every day of the week on different stations, and then archived on YouTube, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and all different kinds of podcasts, Pod This and Podbean, all different kinds of places who archive the show for us. And on those archives, your ad would play indefinitely, forever. You also get a little banner on OppermanReport.com. You get a mention on the air. You get a little interview on the air, and all kinds of fun stuff if you sponsor Opperman Report. We have an opportunity to get this show on a major AM/FM station in California. We've been approved. So if you want to sponsor us into that, so incredibly inexpensive that your ad would be heard by a the range covers 5 million people in population where your ad would be broadcast, and all these other stations would be thrown in for free. So really affordable prices to sponsor OppermanReport.com. Get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You can get a copy of that book at emailrevealer.com, or you can get a copy of that book now. It's back up on Amazon.com. How to Become a Successful Private Investigator by Ed Opperman. And this book has been updated a little bit from the previous book that we had that was available to our wonderful listeners.